Welcome to the Wits and Weights podcast, where we discuss getting strong and healthy with strength training and sustainable nutrition. I'm your host, Philip Pape, and in each episode, we examine strategies to help you achieve physical self-mastery through a healthy skepticism of the fitness industry and a commitment to consistent nutrition and training for sustainable results. Welcome to another episode of Wits and Weights. Today's a first for the show because we're doing a coaches roundtable with 5 other amazing people in my inner circle whom I would consider friends at this point, and they are out there making an impact in people's lives. These incredible men and women include active and aspiring nutrition coaches and personal trainers, and each of them has a unique perspective on health and fitness. They agreed to come together despite being in different time zones. We've got folks in the morning, in the evening, middle of the day, all around the world. And they're going to share their experience and expertise to help you thrive and achieve physical self-mastery. After all, that's the mission of this podcast. It's why I'm constantly looking to bring on experts like these who share that mission, even if we use different paths to get there. We'll be covering nutrition, training, women's health, navigating social situations, tracking your food, endurance sports and ultra running, how to be more consistent, and longevity, just to name a few, assuming we get to all of those. Without further ado, let me introduce everyone, and then we're going to dive into the questions. So I want to give each coach a chance to kind of take the floor, starting with Elaine Tarbell. Elaine, how you doing?
Good, thank you.
So Elaine is from Oskaloosa. Did I pronounce that right?
Oskaloosa.
I knew I'd get it wrong. It's near Des Moines, right? Des Moines, Iowa?
It is near Des Moines, yep.
Okay, Oskaloosa, Iowa. She's a personal trainer, gym owner of Tarbell's Barbells. Gotta love the name. And she's a nutrition coach. Elaine uses her experiences and knowledge to help other women achieve their goals in a kind and compassionate way. And she specializes in women's health, both through nutrition and weight training. So again, Elaine, thank you for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you very much, Philip. I'm very excited to be here.
And so am I. It's going to be a fun conversation. Moving on, there's 6 of us, but I don't have to introduce myself. So we're going to next go to Michelle Moe. And I might be calling her Moe during this conversation because we actually have 2 Michelles with an E on the call today. Michelle's from Charlotte, North Carolina. She's the owner and head coach of Mo Stronger Nutrition and Fitness. They teach people how to eat foods they love, lose weight, feel great, maintain it for life. And she helps people navigate the aging process with positive results. Michelle, I appreciate you for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
All right. Our third coach today is Aaron Cartridge from Brisbane, Queensland, in Australia, right? Aaron is a nutrition coach with a passion for endurance sports. He helps aspiring ultra runners sift through misinformation in the sport and maximize their performance. Aaron, man, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Good to finally have a conversation and meet up. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. And maybe we'll have a chance to talk about all those lives you've been doing on Facebook. All right. Next up is Michelle Clark, who currently lives in Florida, but she's originally from Brazil. She's a fitness and nutrition specialist, helping women of all walks of life to learn how to nutritiously and peacefully achieve and sustain their fitness goals. I want to say that peacefully because it already is calming me down, Michelle. Michelle, I'm so glad you were able to come on the show as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. No, it's going to be great. And then let's get to our final coach of the evening or the morning. Last but not least is JC from Inverness in the Highlands of Scotland, which I understand is the mouth of the river that's connected to Loch Ness that we all know about, right?
Well done, man. Well done.
Cool, right?
That's cool. Yeah, actually, we play monsters every morning. When I get the shower, I just give him a wave.
There you go, man. And JC may even show off his attire for you at some point if you're watching the video. We'll see.
It's a must.
It's a must. Yeah, people are like, what are you talking about? You'll see. Just think Scotland. You know what I'm talking about.
No problem.
So, all right. So JC is a health, longevity, and nutrition student who dabbles in biohacking and holistic healing. He explores why in our ever-developing world, we're going backward in terms of mental and physical health, and he helps people with their longevity goals. JC, thank you for coming on.
That's me. It's good to be here, man. Yeah, good to finally meet you all.
Yeah, this has been fun. We had a whole conversation before recording this, and I think people listening are going to get a ton from this because every single one of us is so unique. We all have something different to bring to the nutrition space, and we're chatting all the time and helping each other help our clients. So that's how we grow. I'm going to start with Elaine with the first question, and then we'll give everybody a chance with at least one question to start, and then we can just kind of go back and forth. Elaine, I understand most of your clients, they have stressful lives, right? They struggle to get out of the mental space, get out of their heads. And I'm sure there's a lot of people listening who are also stressed out. How can people take care of themselves? How can they build that confidence to achieve their goals?
Yeah, that's a really good question, actually. I think just kind of reiterating what you said, people, especially women, they're so used to taking care, like if you have children, they're so used to taking care of their children and meeting everybody else's needs. There's a lot of people pleasing. Women are kind of ingrained to take care of everybody else before it's taking care of themselves. So when it comes time to taking care of themselves, there's a identity crisis there. There's like this, I don't know how to do that. And, when you become an adult, you don't have parents to tell you how to do those things anymore. So a lot of times I feel like in coaching women, there's a lot of like, I have to almost be their mother in a way. Like, well, did you go outside and go for a walk? Did you eat breakfast? Did you drink any water today? Like, have you done the basics? And sometimes we're like, oh, yeah. And sometimes we get so stuck up here and we're overthinking the process. We think we've got to do this 90-day fix. We've got to do this cleanse, this detox. There's all this, social media bullshit. Are we allowed to swear?
Go for it. It's fine. As long as you don't hit the threshold, we're good. Just certain words, Go ahead.
There is so much crap out there that is being shoved down our throats, and we have to be a size 0, and we have to be able to get the kids this nutritiously perfect meal all the time. And meanwhile, we're neglecting ourselves. So sometimes it's just a matter of coming in and just saying, hey, are you getting those basic needs met? Because if you're not, then we need to start there.
The thing you mentioned at the beginning resonated with me, how people are missing the parent figure, and that's what they need. I mean, how often do we even reach out to somebody who is close in our lives, who isn't even our parent, for support? It probably rarely happens, and you can be that person for them, right? You can be someone that they don't have an emotional attachment to. And, I look at it as I can mansplain and get away with it with my clients because they're asking for help. They're asking for information, So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I actually kind of had this, I guess, like on one of my walks, I had this conversation with myself about it. Like, I didn't have parents that were there to guide and instruct me. They were just sort of like living in the moment, and they've not been good role models, I guess you could say. And when I became a parent, it was my absolute determination to be a better mother than what I had experienced. And I have found that in my own struggles, there's times where I still grieve that loss of a parent, not just because maybe they're not here on this earth, is neither here nor there at this point, but just that emotional connection to someone that would guide me to becoming a better person, and having that deep desire within myself, and seeing so many people are disconnected from who they are and from having someone to look up to. I feel like coaching is very similar to being a parent. You have to set boundaries and expectations, and you don't have like this, like you have to meet this expectation, but you have to have some kind of an expectation for your clients, and they have to be able to willingly reach for that in order to feel like they can make some kind of gain and success, not just physically, obviously, because we're all here to help people achieve some kind of physical fitness, but also to achieve some kind of mindset and mental growth.
Yeah, and isn't that such a huge part of this for a lot of people? It really is about mindset and consistency and accountability. Cool. So the format of this show today is a little awkward because I'm going to kind of jump from person to person instead of the continue on that flow, because I could probably ask you 10 more questions, Elaine, but we'll come back to it. I'm sure you're okay getting the spotlight moved off for a bit. But, if anything resonates with anybody that's really strong, just jump in, even if it is in this first round. And if you want to comment, feel free.
I do. There's something
Michelle.
that I want to add to that.
Please.
I, in a nutshell, what Elena was saying, usually what I tell my clients, especially parents, I always tell them, you can't pour from an empty cup, right?
Absolutely.
You cannot teach, you cannot lead unless you're doing it. We lead by example. So we have to be the role model so that and that's how we influence people, right? It's not by telling them. I can tell you for sure, it's not by telling them, you got to do this. In coaching, obviously, it's a little different, but we also do what we preach, right? So we are influencing. So yeah, we cannot pour from an empty cup. That's all I wanted to say.
That's great. And don't you find that being a coach is its own form of accountability, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
It almost makes it, I don't want to say makes the whole thing easier, but you just have dozens or hundreds or followers online or whoever's following you, holding you accountable, and you've got to act the part. So,
absolutely.
So everybody who's listening, maybe they want to become a coach. Okay. So I'm going to move on to Michelle, how you doing?
Hello. That was great. I just want to say Elaine answered that very well. One thing I may just add before you asked me what you were going to ask me, sorry, is, it's how we talk to ourselves sometimes too. I think it's easy to talk to ourselves in a different way in our head than we would maybe a friend.
Right.
So to make that shift toward the way we speak to ourselves in light of our weight loss or what we're doing toward our goals, I think to make that shift, and it takes time, it takes practice to get to that point where you tell yourself that you can achieve these things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love that.
For sure. Now we can continue on that, Mo, if you want,
Sorry.
or we can. No, that's the thing.
Ask,
this is
ask away.
So yeah, I mean, there are a lot of little situations we're going to cover here that I think the listener be curious about how to deal with, and one of those, a common struggle that you've talked about, is navigating social situations, right? And how do you help clients enjoy their lifestyle, right? Because we talk about that all the time, especially we came up through NCI. We talk about periodization, we talk about sustainability and not restricting in all of those. So how do you help people enjoy their lifestyle, yet they still have to achieve this goal that's going to take some hard work and some change?
Okay. Funny you asked that because I just did a whole video on that the other day. A couple things I do. First of all, I have the client look at the situation, the holiday, the barbecue, party, whatever they're going to. What are you going there for? Well, you're going there to enjoy family, friends, the event. You're not going there for the food or drink. That shouldn't be why you go. You're not going to say, I can't wait to go there and get drunk or eat like an asshole. That's not the point. You're going there to enjoy family, friends, go to the beach, vacation. So keep that in mind when you go there. It's not about the food. The food's a benefit, but that's not why you're there. Go there and enjoy the people. Okay. The food is great. Second thing I would say is, so the first thing was just don't make it about the food. The other thing is don't make every day an event, a special event, every day, every week. There's holidays, there's anniversaries, there's birthdays, there's your kids' soccer tournament, whatever it is. We have these things throughout every year. We all have them, maybe one a month, maybe two a month. But in the whole scheme of things, this shouldn't be your everyday life. Every day can't be a celebration. And then the third thing I would say, so keep it in moderation. Don't make every day like Wednesday night. Oh, great. Let's have some wine. It's Wednesday. That can't be a thing if you're trying to lose weight, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the other thing is I would plan it. Think about these things. You don't end up somewhere saying, whoopsie, I ended up at a barbecue. Now I have to eat and drink. No, these things are coming. So just plan it. And let's plan it with your coach. Let's work toward that and say, I have this thing coming up. How can we work through it? How can we come up with a plan to where you can still go and enjoy it and still meet your goals? Because you shouldn't go there with guilt. You shouldn't go say, I just ate and drank some things I shouldn't. Or let's take that as an untracked meal. There's nothing wrong with one untracked meal in a week. One untracked meal out of the whole week will not blow your plan and your goals.
Yeah, one untracked planned meal, like you're saying, right?
True.
Yeah,
you don't want to eat like it's your last meal on earth. Because you don't want to make yourself sick too. But
just don't go starving.
Three things that I do. Exactly. Well, that's another point is eat before you go. I'm the queen of that. I'll be sitting in the car and we might be going to an event where there's going to be food and I'm eating food in the car on the way there. And my husband's like, you're crazy, but I'm over there eating my protein bar or my turkey wrap or whatever it is, because I don't want to get there and I'm starving. And then I want to eat everything inside. Also, one more tip. I'm sorry. I have a lot of tips on this. Don't sit near the buffet. Okay, get a plate. Yeah. Put food on a plate and go sit down and eat what's on your plate. Don't sit there and graze, because if you sit there and you're going to talk to your friends and you're at the buffet, you're just going to sit and eat all night. Yeah. Get a plate and that's what you're going to eat. And then if you want more, you're forced to go back and get more food.
Yeah, those are awesome tips. I like the second one you mentioned. I don't hear that talked about a lot. The fact that we always say, well, you're going out for the weekend, so you need to plan, but why does the weekend every week have to be this special thing? I mean, you could have a routine weekend, hang out at home or, whatever. But
a phrase I like to use with a client is don't let your weekend be your weekend. WEAK. Nice. Don't let your weekend be your weekend.
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
That's good.
Cool. Clever.
That's a good one. All right, cool. So that's a great point to move to the next victim here, Aaron. And we've all got it. We've got the screens ordered and everything. So if people are on video, they know who's next or watching the video. Aaron, you're in the endurance and ultra realm, which is not something I'm familiar with at all. I've run in my life, and I once trained for a half marathon, and that's as far as I got was training for it.
It's good.
Except for a few obstacle course races, but I do have a lot of respect for something like an ultra marathon because of its scope and ambition and the amount of training you have to do. It's not just distance. It's a massive amount of distance and all sorts of planning that goes behind that. So what is involved in training for an ultra? Is it just lots and lots of cardio, or is there more to it than that? Hey listeners, this is Philip Pape, and I'm excited to announce our upcoming totally free 21-day challenge starting December 1st. It's called the Wits and Weights No Diet Holiday Body Recomp Challenge. This challenge is about learning how to achieve body recomposition. That's building muscle and losing fat at the same time without dieting or restriction throughout the holidays. I'll be giving you free videos, guides, and personalized coaching in a private group chat to help you enjoy the holidays while being satisfied and guilt-free. The kickoff call is Friday, November 17, and the link to enroll is in the show notes. No matter what episode you are listening to, don't worry. If you're hearing this after November 17, you can still register and get access to the replay and resources before the challenge starts on December 1st. Again, to join the Wits and Weights No Diet Holiday Body Recomp Challenge to build muscle and lose fat without dieting through the holidays, click the link in my show notes. Now back to the episode.
Definitely more to it than that, but that doesn't take away from the fact that there is lots and lots of cardio. So, for example, if you know you're going to do a run and you're going to be on your feet for 12 to 36 hours, there's no compromise. You have to condition your body. You have to condition your ankles and your feet and your back and everything. And the only way to do that is to train on the terrain that you're going to be, racing on. So yes, you can't get away from the fact that you need to spend a lot of time on feet, doing the running, doing the cardio. But I think a lot of traditional training plans, they overlook the importance of strength training as well. So I know, looking at my history when I did a 100K back in 2019, I definitely overlooked the strength training. And when I finished, a month or two later, I hadn't stopped training so much, and my body was just broken because all I'd done was sorry, my alarm's going off. Tell me to wake up.
Good morning.
All I had done was the thing, and I hadn't really worried about bulletproofing my body and getting that structure super strong. So yeah, it definitely made me reflect and train differently moving forward. So core work, anything that helps you get up those hills faster, but also, as I say, bulletproofs the body is definitely necessary.
And you mentioned, I like how you mentioned, I guess the specificity of training, right? Training within the terrain, but also strengthening extremities and joints in areas like maybe your calf muscles, your ankles, and things. Does that come with the training itself on the terrain, or do you also do special strength training movements for those, isolation areas, for those joint areas?
Yeah, look, I really like unilateral training. Anything that, because a lot of people recommend, okay, well, you do your lunges, do your squats and your deadlifts, improve your glutes. On the trail, when you're running, you never stood on 2 feet. So I really like any stability work, anything that's unilateral, quite explosive training. So you're going from left to right. Anything that gets you to jump. But then also, it's important then just to think full body, anything that's rather than isolation. I think that and if you are limited for time, you're better off doing full body work and
makes sense.
And unilateral stuff.
Cool. Yeah. So like bilateral stuff might be focusing on the hamstrings, focusing on the quads and the calves, right? But unilateral might be step ups and lunges and what are your favorite movements? Yeah.
Certainly focusing on the same muscle groups, but rather than doing, as you say, a deadlift, doing a single leg deadlift. So you're holding a weight on one side. Same with your squat. So if you hold a heavy kettlebell in your left hand and do a squat, it's all about that stability and getting your, looking for any weaknesses. And then, really finding those weaknesses and focusing on improving those things.
Nice.
Because when you're fatigued, as I say, if you've been on the trail for 10 hours and you've still got another 2 or 3 hours to go, you can bet that those weaknesses will definitely sneak up and make you wish it.
I got tired only by thinking about it.
There you go. I bet.
It sounds intense and kind of fun.
It's definitely it's a mental game, and I think this is what drives a lot of people to the trail running, especially the endurance efforts, because most people aren't trying to break any records. You have some crazy elites and they're doing these things like just incredible sort of times, but the vast majority of people, like the age group, like the highest performing age group typically for these runs are 40 plus, like 40 to 50. Because it's a lot of people are ex-athletes and they've done the explosive stuff, but now they realize that they can slow everything down and they're just competing against the self because, it's that mind game of knowing that you've just got to push on, planning every step, planning, what you have at the next checkpoint, how much water you're going to drink, how much food you're going to drink, what are you going to do when your body starts saying, you probably shouldn't push on anymore. Like, how do you control your thoughts? So there's a lot more to it than cardio.
Nice. So you're obviously the expert in this, and we're going to come back to that because I want to cover some other things like you mentioned, fueling and nutrition, and also maybe you alluded to overtraining and some things people can consider, because you're the man to talk to about that. So maybe even touch on like what it makes sense for a beginner who's getting into it versus like you mentioned, some of these ex-athletes. So I want to move on to, thanks, man. Thanks, Aaron. I want to move on to Michelle, the other Michelle Clark. How you doing?
Good. Catching my breath after all this marathon talk.
Yes. Yeah, it can be intimidating. I talk about lifting weights as being this amazing thing, and it's just in reality, I don't want to be doing that, what Aaron's doing. So now we're going to get into mindset again, which is a common recurring theme when it comes to anybody who's listening, who's trying to improve their health, improve their fitness. Your big focus is on consistency more than intensity or quantity, volume. Tell us about your approach to celebrating the small wins.
So yeah, you're right. I am big on like doing it, right? I always say that done will always be better than perfect or not done, right? So what I try to coach my clients on is on just doing it. Just get yourself started. Don't overthink it. Don't worry about how long it's going to take. not only in terms of what they're doing, like the exercise itself, but also how long it's going to take for them to achieve their goals. Don't worry how well you're going to perform, intensity, none of that, because I think that the majority of people, based on my experience, and actually I'm speaking from my own experience, not only the people that I work with, but also my own experience. I think that when we overthink and try to plan too much, although planning is very, very important, but I think that the first step is just getting started and creating that consistency, right? So, again, what I try to tell them is like, okay, you need to start walking more, right? We need to start increasing the amount of steps you take daily. So we're going to start with 5 minutes. You just have to go. You just get your sneakers on and just go. Don't worry if it's going to take 5 minutes, because what I see is like sometimes we won't do it. They won't do it because it's like, oh, I don't have an hour to go for a walk, right? Or to get on the treadmill. But you don't need an hour. You just need to create the consistency, because if you go 5 minutes, you're going to see that you're going to end up doing it for 10. You're going to do it for 15, for 20. And if you really don't have the time, that's okay. You still go for only the 5-10 minutes that you have, and work on the consistency. And then we're going to worry about the time. So that's what I do when it comes to moving more, right? And the same goes for food. I always tell my clients to focus on the next meal, right? So like the meal that you're going to have next. So if you wake up in the morning, your focus you have to be focused on your breakfast. Do the best you can with your breakfast, right? I was going to say, don't worry about your lunch, but you do have to worry about it, because there is we know that planning is needed, right? You can't just, the clock can hit 12 o'clock and you're like, oh shit, what am I going to eat? Right. Mm-hmm. So we do need planning, but I take more the approach of taking baby steps, right? Mm-hmm. So focus on breakfast, do a good job with breakfast, and celebrate that. Celebrate the fact that you had your protein, right? That you didn't loaded yourself up with refined sugar or, simple carbs. Do that. Get that out of the way. And then you think of lunch, right? And so on, and your snacks and all that. And I find that really works, and I tell them, and if you struggle, if it's like 10 o'clock and you're already struggling, so I don't know if that's a good thing, but I'm very easily accessible to my clients, so they can reach out to me and be like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to do for lunch. And I'm like, okay, all right, take a deep breath and let's get that, let's focus on that. Don't worry. Oh, I don't know what I'm going to have for dinner. I'm like, wait, but what did you do for lunch? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, I mean, everything you're saying, it's funny. You mentioned planning is important, but also taking action is important, right? Because we do, as coaches, you would love to have this grand plan for the next 6 months, or everything's mapped out and your workouts are mapped out and everything, but that's not reality. And right. Like you said, if that opens the door to excuses, which is things what we're talking about here, when people say, well, I don't have running shoes and I can't take an hour and I can't do this and right. I can't do that. It's like, well, you can take 5 minutes. Like that is a fact. You can take right. 5 minutes. So how do you do that? Or how would somebody listening do that? Right. Because it's that initial momentum, I think, that initial motivation, we call it, that eventually you don't require the motivation. Right. How does somebody do that?
To me, it's more like doing it, not debating, not trying to negotiate okay. with yourself. I feel like every time I try to negotiate with myself, it goes badly. It doesn't go well, So I'm going to speak by my own experience. As all of you now know, I'm expecting. So I am now almost... I'm 14 weeks now, but what I was going to say is that the first trimester was very challenging for me, and I'm very active. I've been very active, and I have kept a very well-balanced diet for the past 12 years, I think. And then all of a sudden I'm feeling nauseous and I cannot work out or eat the foods, the amount that I'm used to eat, right? And that hit me really hard because I had control over everything, a lot of planning, and all of a sudden I'm like, okay, You know, here I go. Here I am. What am I supposed to do now that I no longer have control? Luckily, it's going away, so things are getting better now. But to answer your question, what I have been doing, what I did while I was feeling very, nauseated, and what I'm starting to do now, I don't think about it. I'm like, okay, I don't have an hour to go lift weights. I can't lift yet because I'm not quite there yet. I'm still not 100% in terms of how I feel, but I'm like, okay, what is it that I can do? And I don't think about it. I literally just put my sneakers on and I go for a walk. And sometimes I'm able to go for 20 minutes. Sometimes I end up doing it for an hour and a half, but I don't negotiate, because the reality is if I do, I'll be like, well, but remember, you're pregnant, you're not feeling so great. Oh, you go later, you go tomorrow. And I find that most of the people that I work with struggle with that, So don't focus on the task at hand. Like, just do it. Obviously, now for like people that work full time, for instance, you have to have some sort of planning, right? You can't just up and go. You have to. So that what I tell them is like, okay, I leave the house too early, or I come home too late, right? And then I have husband, kids, whatever. What I tell them is, what can you do? Can you do it at lunch? How long is your lunch break? Oh, I have an hour lunch. Okay, great. How long does it take for you to eat? Oh, it takes me 15 minutes. Okay, so what do you do with the next 45 minutes that you have, right? And that's when they start to. I swear to you, I
light
worked
bulb goes off, right?
Exactly. I worked with this one girl who was doing phenomenal, and she tried to convince me that she had no time. I have no time. And then I started to ask her all these questions, and she's like, okay, yeah, but I wouldn't have time to do this and that. And I can't she doesn't work from home. And she was like, well, but I can't, I can't really go to a gym now. I can't afford that. I'm like, okay, let's focus on what you can do, not what you cannot do, right? Turns out that she started to walk around in town. She works downtown. So she would eat her lunch, and then she would go for walks, and, she found herself walking for 40 minutes when she thought she had no time.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, go ahead, Elaine.
I was just going to add, I like to ask people, or at least look at their schedule and see where are the pockets of time.
Exactly.
And even if it's 10 minutes, everybody has 10 minutes somewhere. So
yeah, and you probably are spending time on things that you could substitute for other things and haven't quite realized it yet.
And Philip, I don't think I spoke so much, and I don't think I actually answered your question. You talked about celebrating small wins. And then what I tell them is, once you do that, even if it's only 5 minutes, you celebrate that. You give yourself a little tap on the back, and you say, good job, you did it. 5 minutes is always going to be better than zero. One good meal a day, a complete meal, with all your macros, protein, good carbs, vegetables, will always be better than zero good meals, right? Mm-hmm. So I encourage them to celebrate all the little tiny wins.
I agree. That's super important, because I've seen clients in our check-in early on that I ask them their wins, and they're like, I didn't have any wins this week. And then I'm like, okay, that opens the door to some really good deep conversation.
I love it.
I might have to show you your wins, because you probably have 10 right in your data or your check-in, right? But it's that shift in mindset, and that's who they're to help with, to support them with. So maybe the people listening, if you struggle with that, hear what Michelle's saying, that their wins every day, they could be the smallest thing. Like, you got up, you're breathing, and you're walking around and enjoying the planet. I mean, it could be anything. Right. All right. So this is really good stuff. We're getting deep. Let's go. John, or JC's been chomping at the bit, right? Last on the list, but not least. And
I don't know if it's making me more nervous.
Yeah. Hey, what happened to your fireplace there? It got too hot, huh?
I know, it's gone out, man. Yeah, my dog came in, the fireplace went out. It's all.
Yeah. All right. So I'm really glad you came on, because your focus is very different in some ways from us. It's much more toward longevity. Sometimes we like to split our goals into things like physique or body composition goals versus, say, a performance versus longevity, right? Living a long life and being optimally healthy and not necessarily chasing some of those other things all the time. And I can always count on you to teach me something I've never heard before, because I'm in your group chat where you share all this interesting stuff. What's your personal routine? Because I want to start there. so that people understand how you live your life, right? And so we know that you walk the walk, and then later on we can get into some hacking concepts. Personal routine for your health and longevity.
Personal routine. Let's see. I could probably go my daily routine. So my daily routine would be my general routine. General routine's more minimize stress and focus on sleep and family time and move and do a bit of stretching and stuff. But my daily routine, I would say, sorry, I'm sitting on the floor here. I'm seeing you, Elaine, you're moving about too. I'm sitting on the floor trying to bounce about. So in the morning, I usually start off in the morning, cold shower. A cold shower in the morning wakes you straight up. There's a process called autophagy happens as well when you're going to cold shower. So it kind of, I don't know if you know about that, but it's the process of autophagy is your cells in your body. So when you go for a cold shower, you get cold and hot therapy and stuff too. And the cold shower, basically, with the autophagy, it eliminates all the bad cells in your body and it recycles all the cells that are there's still something in them, but just renews all your cells. So first thing in the morning, cold shower. I'm getting my kids into cold showers too. That's good fun. You should try it.
Oh my!
Especially in the winter.
I wish I was
wake you up.
Especially in the Scottish winter. Oh my god!
Yeah, definitely. So we try and do some grounding in the morning. Now, grounding is a lot easier in the summertime, and just now it's not very. You don't really fancy getting outside and -2. The grass.
Well, explain what grounding is for people, right?
After a cold shower, mind you.
Oh my goodness.
Well, grounding is basically just getting outside in your bare feet and stand on the grass. If you can get in the sand or somewhere good. I was gutted to find out that if you stand on the tar, because I'd be at work, because my day job is an electrician. So at lunchtime, we sat in the van, nice day, outside, bare feet, looking like a total idiot to people that don't know me or know what grounding is. And I was doing it for ages, for the whole year. And then I looked up and apparently you can't ground on tar. I'm gutted.
Oh, yeah, I bet. Because it's going to scorch your feet off?
Yeah. Well, grounding, exactly, yeah. But grounding, basically the Earth's full of different energies and it kind of recharges you. And we're never taught this and we don't know this, but I've looked at quite a few studies and a few scientists talking about it. And if anyone's interested in grounding, look into it. But that's why I'm the middleman, you see, because I know a lot of stuff, a little about a lot, but not a lot about a little, So yes, but grounding's really good. In the motor, I always hydrate in the morning, so I usually have probably between 500 and 750 ml of water. So we have a filter process in our house. All our water in our house is filtered as it comes in, our tap water. And I've also got a reverse osmosis machine. So all my water for the day I've put in my stainless steel bottles, no BPAs. So so I have that in the morning. I have my vitamin C. So I try and have vitamin C 3 times a day, ascorbic acid. So that just boosts the immune system. What else do I do? Just try to think. I've obviously got all my meals, like you're saying, your macros, your proteins, prioritize proteins.
Hey, JC, your vitamin C, how much do you take? How many teaspoons?
Probably about half a teaspoon, if I'm honest. About half a teaspoon, or just a good pinch.
3 times a day.
About 3 times a day, yeah, and that keeps the immune system, keeps it going, keeps it good, Through the day, other supplements I'll try and do some fish oils, some krill oil, or something like that. Depends, because it's quite expensive for the good stuff. And I'll always do my my mind's just absolutely magnesium. Yeah, my magnesium's good, so you need magnesium. Yeah, I've actually read some really cool studies. There's a guy, Clive Carl. He's a really cool guy. He had chronic joint pain and stuff at 30, and he was in hospital and try to give him all this medicines. Anyway, your man basically, long story short, he cured himself with magnesium. High doses of magnesium, sorted out. It's incredible some of the stuff,
It is. And just to take a pause on magnesium, like my wife had massive migraines for years and she started taking more magnesium and they either have gone away or significantly mitigated. And other people have had sleep issues and take it at bedtime and helps them with sleep. So you're right. It's a pretty great mineral that we're lacking.
I'm a big proponent to magnesium too. I think we can all agree. Certainly with the ultra running.
We don't agree with everything else, JC, but the magnesium,
We're all on board with this one.
Actually, it's funny
because magnesium, not the cold shower.
I mean, all the stuff you're saying, I've heard. You're right. Even cold showers, there's definitely plenty of studies that say there's good stuff there, like saunas and other. So here's the thing. I actually do want to ask you this follow-up question because just like what the conventional nutrition folks cover can be overwhelming for people at first, right? It's like, oh, I have to only do these 15 different things to have a good, healthy life. Similar with your stuff, I even think that like, am I going to do cold showers? Am I going to do this and that and the other? What's like the top 1 or 2 things that somebody would focus on and want to prioritize?
Sleep all day, sleep and stress. That's the 2. My kind of system I'm trying to put together just now is like a jigsaw. Imagine a big jigsaw, and our health is that jigsaw. But the jigsaw is not like any other jigsaw that's got small parts that all come together. There's big parts and there's small parts, and you need them all for optimal health. And like you said, it's funny you said 2 because it's always the 2 for me is stress, sleep. That's the 2.
Yeah. And that's the one that always gets like short shrift, right? When we talk, you need training, you need walking, you need food. And by the way, you need stress and sleep. Like, not that we all necessarily message it that way, but I think it's often received that way, at least in my opinion. And even today, sleep is something I struggle with, and I know I should prioritize it more than I do because it's going to help everything else. Yeah. So cool. All right. We're going to come. Yeah.
Sorry, I think Elaine nailed it earlier on as well. She said about the pressures for women nowadays, to be a size 0 and stuff. I think there's a pressure for everybody. I think there's a pressure for you to make more money and, work more hours, and there's pressures from all ends. So I think on that basis, sleep kind of does take a backseat, and stress is obviously heightened because you're spending less time with your family. I mean, we're here to live, you work to live, not live to work. And the world's changing a lot. I mean, if you look like 40, 50 years ago, not in a chauvinist way, but I'd say like a man would work and a woman would stay home. Not in that at all. But I mean, like one parent would work and one parent would look after the children. And that one parent could afford everything. They could afford holidays. You had a good lifestyle. But nowadays, our kids are all shunned off to babysitters and whatnot. And we're not living enough, and I think that's a major problem today. But that's another story,
True. I bet you resonate with a lot of people who are listening to it. There's it's a matter of change. I mean, sleep, stress, we all have a lot of stress, especially us. We're probably somewhat edging on workaholics as coaches, right? But sleep is a huge mitigator of that. I know when I have like an extra half hour sleep and I get up in the morning, I'm ready for the next half day to get stuff done, right? Yeah. And it's a mitigator. So, all right, really cool. I see we're really filling in the time well here, and I want to get back to some other topics. This is awesome. Sure. We're gonna maybe in the future we'll peel off and have a couple at a time. This is great. So I guess back to Elaine. Let's talk. We've touched on nutrition a little bit. You're a personal trainer, right? Mm-hmm. But you're also obtaining your nutrition coaching cert. Why is nutrition important to you and your clients? How do you help them achieve their goals there, and kind of the merging between personal training and nutrition?
Oh God, that's a good question, because sometimes it's really hard, when I'm trained or I'm hired as just a personal trainer and we're talking food, and like I have this one client, she fasts all day. And then dinner time, it's game on. And I looked at her and I was like, how long have you been doing this? And she was like, several years, like 5-6 years. I was like, I don't know what to say. Like, I was just kind of shocked. And I said, studies show that's actually really not very supportive for your metabolism. And if you're hiring me to personal train you, her goal, everybody has their goals, and her goal was to have runner's legs without running. Okay. And so I just said, if we're going to be going through this process, I need you to understand that you're going to have some form of energy when you come into train with me. So if you're going to train like an athlete, you also have to eat like an athlete. So you have to have things for recovery. You have to have foods for energy. And you have to also think about, like, if you are a woman or even a man, you have hormones that play into effect as to how conditioning is going to affect, and nutrition is going to affect all that. So I don't try to ever cross the line unless it's being asked. If someone wants to directly ask me, I will directly answer. If they are hiring me for both, I do have one client that she works with my husband for personal training, but then I train her nutritionally. And so there are times where I will, like, this is kind of a funny thing, but I remember going to my husband and I'm like, okay, so I'm going to call her Mary. Mary is starting her cut, so I need you to back off on some of her cardio type. I don't want you putting her under too much stress. Like, keep pushing the weight, but please take away some of the added stuff, right? And he didn't listen to me. he forgot. And so a few weeks later, I'm checking in with her. I'm like, how are things going? She's like, I'm so tired. And I just don't have any energy. And I'm just like, well, what's going on? So I pulled him aside. I was like, why didn't you, and I just so it's kind of the fun part about training with my husband and having that duality, I guess, when he's got one, we have the same client, but we're meeting their needs differently. And that's where communication is huge when it comes to training a client, both in the gym and in nutrition. I find it's probably easier to do both if you have a client and you're able to program both things for them. It's probably a lot easier than, or at least knowing what their training program is going to look like, which in this situation, I had communicated.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying, right? Because there's personal trainers and nutrition coaches. You don't often see it packaged together, but you do. And I know in my case, I'm not a personal trainer, so it's like the opposite. And I can't control what they're doing with their training. So right. I try to coach them on that as best I can, but that's cool. So maybe Mo, let's go into nutrition a bit. You talked about some other hacks or practices, I should say. I don't want to call them hacks. Practices like setting up your environment for success, right? And tracking your food, things like that. How important are doing those things? Setting up your environment from a planning purpose, and also the tracking food.
I would say they're very important. I would love to hear what others think after I say why it's important. But first of all, setting up your environment. If you have weight you want to lose and you've tried everything and you haven't had the success you want, it might be time to change your environment. What I mean by that is you may have to change who you hang around with. And let's go back to the social things you asked me about. You may have to say no to girls' brunch every Sunday or whatever that looks like for you. Maybe that can't work for a time. And I guess I think of clients I've had in the past where maybe they go to their parents' house every week for a dinner, Sunday dinner. Their parents aren't on board with their weight loss, so they don't make foods that they can eat. Well, hang on, sorry, something just popped up on my screen.
That was me.
Hang on, it keeps popping up. Hang on. I couldn't see anything for a second.
I was like, no, I heard the dog barking, and I was like, to me.
So what that looks like is sometimes you may just have to say to your friends, family, look, this is something I'm doing for me and for my health, and this is important to me right now, so I need you to support me. I need you to be on board when I have to say no to the extra drink, or when I can't go out to have wine night with you, or when I can't go out to eat 3 days a week, I can only go out 1 day a week. That goes for your spouse too. So it's I liken it to somebody who, let's say somebody has alcohol issue in their past and they're trying to overcome that. Let's say they're sober now. They can't go hang out at bars. That's just not a good place for them to go. Same when it comes to your weight loss and your food. You have to surround yourself with a positive environment and people that will support you. And you have to set yourself up for success with the food you buy, the food you prep and plan, and where you hang out and what you choose to do. Now, that might just be for a short time during, say, a weight loss or fat loss phase. And those things may come back in the mix. I always like to say that up front and say, okay, this might just be for a short time where you have to say no to some things. Let's get in a diet and get out as fast as we can so that time is not prolonged. Once we're done, we can add those back in. But that's kind of what I mean by set yourself up for success. It's going to be really hard if you have a spouse who's not on board. That's right. The biggest one is let's make sure your spouse is on board with this, or whoever you live with. Because if you're the one cooking food, it can be done. I have clients who they're in charge of, they have to cook food for their spouse, their kids, their grandkids, whoever else lives with them, but yet they can still stay on track. So it goes back to the first thing you asked, Elaine, about mindset is you have to make that mindset shift of I'm going to do this for me. this is important for me right now for my health.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I want to make a distinction with people between restricting or abstaining from what you talked about, which is understanding your own personal triggers or your own personal things that tempt you, or whatever the phrase you want to use, and just taking control in advance and being proactive with your environment. It's not saying, no, I can't do this, no, I can't do that. It's just making the giving you a easier path to avoiding those things and setting guidelines for yourself. So I'm sure we could all agree with that. So thanks, Mo. These are awesome tips, and I like that you talked about people as well as part of your environment, because that is super important. Yeah, go ahead, Michelle.
I just wanted to quickly add something to Michelle's point. I find that it also depends on where people are in their journey, right? Because usually beginners, it's really, really difficult. So I personally try to focus more on like trying to teach them on how to mitigate the damage. Does that make sense? Like, so it's not, even if they drink, they eat more than they should, at least I try to focus on like, okay, here's what you can do so it's not too bad, right? So you don't get off your plan so miserably that you're going to feel like shit afterwards, right? Mm-hmm. But I find that with people that are a little more advanced, I feel that comes with time, right? You don't need to, like, it's easier because they know what to do. They are a little bit better about being more selective, right? I think you guys would agree. I actually have this two people that I talked to yesterday, my coachees, and one of the girls, she's like way more advanced. She has seen some amazing results. And so when we were talking about the holidays, she was like, yeah, it was a little challenging and this and that. I had some moments where, I ate more dessert or I skipped meals, whatever. But it was far less than someone else that I had that's a beginner, right? They struggled a lot more. So yeah, I think it's like, for me, I find it depends really on where each person is. You have to kind of
meet them where they're at.
Yeah,
meet them where they're at.
I agree. That's exactly what I was trying to say.
I agree. I think you're right, Michelle. I think some people, a win might look like having pizza one night, but just having one slice.
Right.
Some people might look like the win is no pizza at all. It depends. Some people.
It's relative.
Yeah, absolutely. And it depends on that journey. You're right. How far along are they? What are those things? Some people can have a little bit of a cheat meal and not go overboard. Some can't have any without going off the rails. Absolutely.
Yep, exactly.
So switching topics again, I know we have, I don't know if anybody has a hard stop in 7 minutes. We could always go a little past, but let me know in the chat. But we're going to move back to Aaron. So Aaron, the ultra stuff, preparing for an ultra and whatnot, do people need to have all their other ducks in a row here that we've been talking about before they do ultra, or can they kind of start slow, take baby steps and work toward it, maybe with some sort of smaller race, and then use your process, whatever it is, like your fueling and training process?
I think that's typically, that's typically what most people would do. They dip the toe in, do a few 10K races, and then they sit down with coffee with a few other like-minded people and something. Actually, my journey into an ultra, I was doing a Spartan race. So I was doing a 7K Spartan race with my wife and a friend, and I just heard these two guys talking about doing the ultra. I went, ooh, an ultra. That sounds cool. What's that? And that was my inspirational moment to decide to become an ultra runner. But yeah, for sure, it's definitely something that you would build up to.
All right, so we're back on the show. We had to edit a little bit of it out. Aaron was talking about ultra races. I think we lost one of our coaches due to a network issue because, Scotland, internet, maybe not as reliable. We'll see if he comes back. And Aaron, you were talking about working your way up to an ultra. What would be the first race? So a guy like me, well, I'm a little bit fit, but somebody who's maybe not even into fitness at all versus somebody who's fit, where would they start?
Yeah, so typically where you would start is you would pick the race. If you wanted to be an ultra, typically it's a 50K to start with for an ultra. I'm not sure what that is in miles. I've been in Australia too long.
It's long.
But It's it's long. Yeah. So typically a 50K is your first ultra. So if you were to have that on your radar, you would pick the race, and typically I'd say don't travel too far. If you've got one local, pick that one, and then depending on your start point, have a good amount of time up to that race, and then do a couple of races in between. So do a half marathon, build your training plan around it, but definitely have at least a half marathon, maybe a marathon, like an easier marathon in between, so that you can experience that race situation and all the nerves and all the planning and really get a good idea of everything that goes into it. And then you'll learn so much every time. You learn about yourself and your nutrition plan and your training plan every time you do one.
And that's races. A good point, right? Just committing to it, kind of like Michelle talks about, just taking the first step. But that's a decent step for somebody to go, okay, I'm going to sign up for you said 50K, which looks like 31-mile run, which is a little bit more than a marathon. But at least you now are forced to figure all this stuff out so that they get a little bit of a leg ahead. What about the fueling strategy, for food? Because to me, that would be the biggest area of uncertainty is how do I prepare maybe in the weeks, days leading up and then the event itself? Just very basics. What should people consider?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's often overlooked. I think a lot of people, there's a bit of a distinction between overtraining and underfueling for ultra runners. Even seasoned runners make the mistakes. And quite often they won't be eating enough. But specifically in those days leading up to the thing, you should already be consuming a high amount of carbohydrates, protein to support, and obviously enough fat just to manage out the calorie totals. Carb loading.
You shouldn't be losing weight leading up to a race.
You shouldn't be losing weight. Yeah, right? I guess you definitely should be maintaining the enough not to be losing weight. And if you see changes in people's faces all the time when they're upping towards doing these longer distances, and it's definitely affecting the performance. But there is an element of carb loading. But what most people do before a race is they'll have a cool off period. They'll taper, so the actual output is dropping anyway. So that calorie maintenance is quite often enough. So, but a lot of people, 24 hours before the race, they'll have a very high carb meal. Lots of people go with pasta, whatever you're used to, in my opinion.
Awesome. Michelle, so we're going to go slightly past our own allotted time. The people listening love it. They love these epic 1.5 to 3 hours. We'll just go 3 hours. No, it won't be much longer. I'm going to hit up Michelle and JC with one more question each, and then we'll wrap it up. So, Michelle, we talked about the small wins. We talked about doing something is better than doing nothing. The last thing I wanted to ask you about is part of your mission is to help women peacefully achieve and sustain their fitness goals. So in today's, as we know from JC, stressful world, how do you get centered and find that peace?
I think knowledge. I think knowledge is freedom, right? So I really try to focus on teaching my clients. I guess what I'm trying to say is I try to help them understand what they're doing and why they're doing it. So I'm very big on sharing knowledge with them, right? So here's why you should start your day with protein. Here's why you have to move more. Here's why you need to prioritize sleep. Because I think that, well, it's not even I think. This is what I've been seeing working with people, right? They become more compliant once they understand what they're doing. So, and that to me is in some ways peaceful, because it's, you know what you're doing. And once you learn, you're also able to draw out your own strategies, right? To Michelle's point, I'm very big on okay, you understand why you're doing this. So if you're going to, so in Brazil, as you guys probably know, we're big on what we call churrasco, which is like a barbecue. So it's like red meat where we grill red meat. So we have this thing where the meat goes around. So I would assume that you guys are familiar with what I'm talking about.
I got to get some protein right now.
So that's very common in Brazil for people, friends, families to get together and just grill some meat. They'll grill meat and they'll gather to eat. It's very, very easy to overeat when you do that, right? Because what they do, they'll grill meat and they go around, right? They'll put the meat, the cut up meat that looks extremely delicious on like a cutting board, like a nice wood cutting board, and they go around serving people, and they love it. Like usually someone that's very good at grilling will be doing it, and then they go around with the meat. So what I tell the folks that I work with is make your plate. Again, Michelle has touched on that. Make a plate, get the amount of meat that you know that you're going to eat, that you need, right? That's going to satisfy you. You don't need to eat your face off. Get your little portion of salad, your little whatever, rice, whatever they have, potato salad. Make your plate, eat your plate, because that will be enough to keep you full. That will be enough, right? So, and then helping them understand why they shouldn't be, peeking on food, constantly like munching away, is what I find help them to be compliant. And that to me is peaceful. When I say peacefully helping them, I mean I teach them so they understand and they're able to make their own choices.
I love that. Yeah, because the ignorance leads to stress, uncertainty, and all the other things that are not peaceful. But as you said, the awareness and knowledge really opens up that door and liberates you. So I love that. So thank you, Michelle.
Most of us, I was just going to say we underestimate the amount of calories in what we eat, right?
Oh,
so
yeah, that too.
You have a little bite of something and you think, okay, this is nothing. This is not going to hurt me. But then 30 days we'll check in, whatever, do the photos after 30 days, and they're super frustrated. They don't understand what happened. I did everything right. Did you?
Yeah. That's what it is. And their coach can question them on it. So that's the thing. I think the studies show like we underestimate by 50%. And that even professionals, dietitians, nutrition coaches, nutritionists, even they underestimate by 20 to 30. So it's crazy.
Wow.
All right. So JC, let's go with the last thing here. I just want to let you tell us like one or two things on your mind that maybe you've been learning lately or we should know, maybe something accessible to people. And I say it that way because again, cold showers, I don't know that everybody would want to jump into that right away, but it's a great thing to do is, something that you've been learning that you think can make an impact on people that is somewhat accessible in your space.
Well, I'm always learning different things, and chopping and changing. And then you go online and you hear one thing and all that. But just now, I mean, in our course, you talk about macros and we talk about stress and we talk about sleep. We've got all these different factors. We're working out muscle mass, stretching, etc. And I think you can do all those things, but there's also external things out with that people don't even think of. So I kind of like to look at these things that are a bit different. And just now, my main focus just now, I've started a book by Dr. Merkla. It's called EMF. And there's another guy I follow, Ben Greenfield. He's into his biohacking, and he talks a lot about EMFs. And you probably hear about me on the group chat talking about EMFs. And a lot of people don't know about EMFs, and it's all your electric fields that are around you. Whether it be your Wi-Fi or whether it be your telly and whether it be, it's crazy, dirty electricity. So you could be next to a light fitting and not even realize you're soaking up these EMFs. And I suppose people will be wondering, well, what's that? Why is that relative to health? But that causes a lot of inflammation. And depending, your body can only process a certain amount. And for years and years and years, it was okay. We could absorb it, we could get rid of it, and it was fine. Causes a lot of free radicals as well, which can cause anxiety, it can cause fatigue, low libido. And we, us as coaches, we can work through all the different processes that we know, but there's this other things that could, and you might think, what's wrong with them, So this has been my focus lately anyway. EMFs, I got myself an EMF meter because it's one thing seeing videos and reading books, but sometimes you really need to know it for yourself. So I've been going around with my meter around the house and try to figure out what's good and what's bad. So I've rewired my house in what's called Cat6 cable for eventually to have no Wi-Fi. Going old school, and it's like even my kids, when I have a big telly on the wall and they're doing their Xbox and they're jumping about doing their Connect, And I'm like, get away from the telly. You're getting fried. That's terrible.
Oh, I can't imagine what the microwave puts out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Horrendous.
Yeah.
But I mean, now we're playing with, they've got these 5G towers and we've got, smart meters and with all these things. So it is something that, I mean, everyone should look at. And the stuff that I've been reading up, I mean, if you think back to, I don't know if it was the 40s or whenever, when doctors were on adverts going, yes, smoking is good for you. Yes. And pregnant women with cigarettes, I mean, sure. I think this is going to be the new smoking,
Yeah, I'm always worried about keeping my cell phone in my pocket. You know what I mean? So,
yes. Yeah, well, there's actually something about that. So you used to be able to go on Apple. You used to be able to go on Apple, and it would actually tell you that you're actually not supposed to have your cell phone within 6 inches of your body at any one time. But now they've made it really hard for you to find that. But that's the truth. You shouldn't have. And what it does is it causes dark spots in your muscles and stuff, and it actually can stop you from having kids as well. It can destroy fertility. So,
Jay, it's so funny that you say that. I never paid attention to that, but since I found out I'm pregnant, I am so careful to not have my phone near my belly, and that happened by instinct. I didn't read anything about it, but I used to lay in bed sometimes at night, and I would listen to like a TED talk, listen to, Wits and Weights, whatever. And I'll have my phone on my belly. Philip didn't even hear me. I said
I did hear you. I heard you. I'm just letting you talk.
Yeah, and I'll have I used to have my phone resting on my legs on my belly, and now I'm I don't do it anymore,
Good. Well, here's another interesting thing for you, Michelle. There's actually been a direct link with, how autism's on the incline. It used to be when I was a kid, there was maybe one kid in your school that had autism. And now, there's probably 3 in each class. But there's a direct link between EMF exposure and autism.
So, I mean, this has been a whirlwind conversation with a lot of different topics that we covered. Hopefully the listener, even though it wasn't, one entire topic, got some great value out of it, that people listening that, it resonated with them. Everybody had their own thing. Something may have been more relevant to somebody than others. And we covered a lot. So everybody here is obviously dedicated to helping people transform their lives. That is clear. And, because we don't want listeners to miss out on connecting with each of you, I want to go around and find out where people can learn about you or your work. So I just want to start with Elaine. Where can people find you?
The best place is to reach out through Facebook and look at Barbells in Oskaloosa, Iowa. And you can just send us a message there and reach out, whether you're looking for training in person or nutritional needs. That'd be the place to go.
Cool. So Facebook, Tarbells Barbells, you could search it, or you could just type facebook.com/Tarbells Barbells and you'll get there. Michelle, Mo, where can people find you?
The best place to find me is on my website, mostronger.com. I'm on Instagram at mostronger. If they go on my Facebook, on my website, they can contact me, and I'd be happy to get on a call with anybody to talk about their goals and their needs and see if it's a good fit.
Cool. There we go. So moestronger.com, and I think it's a big pink button, book consultation, right on the homepage for a free call. Encourage you to do that. And next up we have Aaron. Aaron, you're giving something away, right?
Yeah, so people can find me. I have a free guide to training for your first ultra. And you can send me an inquiry. Either find me on Facebook as Aaron Cartridge or through ptdistinction.com, Kairos Nutrition AU, all one word, is my platform right now.
Awesome. Yep. ptdistinction.com/Kairos Nutrition AU. Get your train for your first ultra guide. It's epic. It'll get you started, and then Aaron can help you with the details beyond that. Michelle Clark, where can people reach you?
Instagram. So that would be the easiest way. I'm there more than I like to admit.
Aren't we all? Whether we like it or not.
I know, right? So I will definitely see it. So my Instagram is short for Michelle, M-I. Nutri for nutrition. So Nutri _ Michelle.
There we go. At @me_Nutri_Michelle with 1 L. And again, all this is going to be in the show notes. Don't worry for people listening. Thank you, Michelle. People definitely reach out to you on Insta. And then JC, Do we want to share anything at this point? Or are you in the
I'm
works?
A ghost, man. I'm a ghost. I'm away in the wind. No, I'll set something up. I'll set something up, probably on Instagram as well. I'll set up a profile. Yeah. So I'll let you know, Philip, and you can maybe put it with the podcast or something.
Oh, we will, because these tend to come out like a couple months later, so all good. We'll have time. All right, so I'm going to include everybody's background, every coach's background and contact info in the show notes, so you, the listener, the viewer, can reach out to them, especially if any one person really resonates with you and your goals. Everyone here can help in some way, not just one-on-one coaching, but just have a conversation, ask a question, go to their Facebook group, watch their stuff, whatever it is. You're going to learn a ton. Thanks to my fellow coaches and friends for joining me today. Thanks to the viewers and listeners for hanging out with us. And as always, stay strong. Thanks for listening to the show. Before you go, I have a quick favor to ask. If you enjoy the podcast, let me know by leaving a 5-star review in Apple Podcasts and telling others about the show. Thanks again for joining me, Philip Pape, in this episode of Wits and Weights. I'll see you next time, and stay strong.